Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are in Champ Select for game number 2 of the Peanut Gallery versus Looking for Girlfriend. So, it's time, guys. Put up in the chat who you believe is going to win as I fill in the game win for Peanut Gallery.
Who do I think is going to win?
Well, I don't expect you to know who to win yet because we haven't seen Pick and Ban. But I think the chat should know because they are biased, whereas we're just casters. We're not supposed to know anything. But
right. Casters never know anything.
Well, we know words. Like, words are kind of our thing. But victories and stats, that's more of a Twitch chat thing, right?
You're right, actually. I do remember all of Twitch chat having a PhD in statistics.
Not just statistics, probability as well.
Right. I mean, they also need to know the physics of the game as well. The sciences behind it, the reasoning, philosophy also, because only a philosophy major could think up half the insults that have been hurled at me in solo queue. So you're right, Twitch chat.
To be fair, I'm a pretty strong philosophizer, and I think that with these bans, I feel disappointed. There's no Shen ban. The Orianna ban is nice though. I do like that adaptation.
Honestly, a little confused at how they've changed their game plan a little bit. They definitely know that the blue girl does not have to be playing one of his two trick champions to have a performance. Yet they still decide to ban one and leave the other up instead of trying to focus perhaps another side of the map and maybe thin out the champions there. They've essentially wasted a ban by only using one target ban towards the blue girl and leaving another up. Is that Tryndamere a placeholder? Are we going to have anyone inform us of that? Or are we just having a blind pick tilt Tryndamere? You know what? We'll analyze this champion select once we know for sure it's been locked in. For now, we should just talk about last game and what we can expect to see from both teams coming in this one and what we'd like to see from both teams. Yeah, that would definitely help. If we didn't have vroom vrooms every half an hour coming through the microphone, we might have more time to have, more aesthetic sounds in the background. Something to really lighten the mood after a good clown fiesta. I'm thinking some vaporwave, but depends on people's preferences. Anyway, back to the game plans for both teams this game. I do want to see both teams play around the mid lane more. We know from last season, we know from highlight videos, from in-houses, we know both of these mid laners can perform when they're needed to. They just need to have the resources given to them to make those plays and to shift the game in their team's favor. I want to see both teams prioritize that a lot more than they did last game. We could see that Killer Z, despite having a fantastic game, getting multiple multi-man shockwaves, really showing up on that Orianna, he didn't exactly receive a lot of help either. There were a couple ganks from the Jarvan, but by that point, Orianna was already ahead on her own. In the meantime, we could see there was complete disconnect between mid and jungle synergy. Chuck would walk by the mid lane multiple times, not really realizing that Mr. Jax could really use a little bit of pressure or maybe a gank or two. Honestly, it's kind of bizarre to see both teams completely ignoring what I would consider to be their strongest players. And Galio is not one of the no. I understand what you mean. Um, and that's what I'd like to see coming out from both of these teams as well, to continue talking about it. We don't know what these compositions are going to be yet. We don't know if these are placeholders. But what I do want to see is I want to see Kendra Boo not on Pantheon. Like you said, the Galio, that's a great idea. Put him on something where, yes, he has the potential to play make. Don't put him on some kind of cheese that's only going to work in certain matchups under certain conditions. You can put him on a carry. You can put him on things like the Fiora or the Kled. But just make sure it's something that's not only meta, but something that can be played around as well. Pantheon is just so one-dimensional, so specific to the matchup, that you may as well just full commit to it and take Ignite if you're going to be picking that.
So it looks like we're going to be seeing Ghostly Baby back on that Jungle Jarvan with the Shen pickup once again. Killer Z's on a different pick. Still one of his bigger picks, though. This is, a Killer Z Vladimir. He plays it a lot. It's something that we've seen a lot. But what else are we seeing? We're seeing Tryndamere versus Shen. If this is a full Tryndamere, which I believe it to be, because I feel like Kendra Boo, in my limited experience with him, this is what he does. He picks melee carries. However, currently, the Warwick top, maybe? I feel like that would actually do fairly decent into Shen.
Yeah, I honestly am not sure what the reasoning behind this champion select is. Locking in the Tryndamere so early on does kind of give away some strategies that you plan on using, assuming that is in fact the Tryndamere being locked in and not a placeholder. Looking like we're going to be getting into this game for real.
Yeah, so it's looking like this isn't a placeholder.
We can start talking about some of the strengths this might have. This is very unusual, not nearly considered meta enough to have a lot of analysis about it. But what we can say is what Chuck did out of everything in that last game was farm. He loved to farm. He loved to farm so much he completely ignored lanes that were currently in the middle of skirmish to go back to his jungle. So at least with this Tryndamere pickup, especially knowing he's going to be playing it into things like Shen and Vlad, it's something that he really doesn't have to worry about. Once he picks up his sustain item, he gets a few items under his belt, he'll be a split pushing monster. He's going to, that may in fact be the strategy of this game. They pick a couple safe wave clearing lanes. I'm not honestly sure what the justification is for the Warwick into the Shen. They did have to blind pick their top laner, but there are just so many more safe picks than Warwick top. But it does have sustain, and I suppose you can Q through the W from Shen and still inflict some damage with that. So there's maybe a little bit of justification somewhere in there. But just overall, the game plan here is it's just entirely on cheese once again. I just finished saying I don't want to see LGF trying to go for some kind of cheese. I wanted them to play something they know they can do, something they've tested before. Instead, they're just going to be going back to something they did last game. They're going for a potential, maybe a surprise onto the peanut gallery. They're really just throwing things on the wall and seeing if it sticks. So we're going to see how this Warwick versus Shen matchup turns out. At least on the side of the peanut gallery, a criticism that we had last game is still going to be very evident now. There's not a lot of upfront damage on the side of the peanut gallery. We have Ashe and Vlad as the main carries, and assuming Ghostly Baby is going to be going the same build as last game, he is going to be going Warrior into those double HP Bruiser items. So of course that is going to complement the rest of the team, provide a little bit of extra damage, but at the same time it's just not sustained damage. There's not a lot of really reliable damage that can continue to be flooding in throughout team fights. But what it does have is it's got really beefy tanks and really beefy front lines, and it's something that White is definitely going to have to be careful of in these team fights, though he does have the range advantage in most situations. If he does manage to get caught out by a Shen taunt or a flag and drag or even a Taric flash stun, he's going to get popped immediately, because once the damage does hit its target, it is going to completely eviscerate that backline.
So now, we mentioned cheese, we mentioned Tryndamere, Pantheon. Warwick, a lot of what these things have in common is they're typically strong split push threats. However, you're going against a Shen. Shen can cancel out auto attacks, which is all Tryndamere has. He can TP away. Tryndamere can't stop that except for killing him. Warwick can stop him with the infinite duress, but then, unless I see a different build than what I'm predicting, probably doesn't sort of win that fight then still. So it's Shen's like the ultimate counter pick to almost everything Looking for Girlfriend's trying to do in both these games.
Right, and it's going to be an uphill battle for LGF. They're going to have to basically execute this composition not only correctly, but in a way that's not going to be so easily predicted and then countered in movement by the Peanut Gallery. Shen is easily able to match either the Tryndamere or the Warwick under tower, force them to constantly back away after taunting them. Their melee, they're not exactly safe, and they don't exactly have a lot of CC to really kite around with, kind of poke the Shen away from tower range. So it's honestly, I'm kind of curious to see how they decide to execute this to begin with. It's not like you play the Tryndamere jungle for the team fighting 5v5s anyway, so I'm wondering what their game plan is going to be specifically for the split push. Do they go for the 1-3-1? Do they go for the 1-4-0? Are they going to try and fight around objectives and make sure this Tryndamere commits to towers in the meantime? What exactly do they plan to do? I'm not quite sure. They do have zoning tools. That is the one thing they do have in LGF that could definitely shift the game in their favor. The Caitlyn traps the box from Thresh along with all the CC that can complement it, and the zoning control from the Glacial Shroud, or Anivia's ultimate, the Glacial Storm. They provide zones of control, so hopefully they can play around objectives and choke points and maybe get a little bit of pressure for their split pushers to get some time on those towers.
The one thing that Looking for Girlfriend really have going for them, though, is a very dangerous 1-3-1. They have the TP on the Warwick. They don't have the TP on the Tryndamere, but I don't expect them to actually care about the Tryndamere that much. So, I mean, they can just stick him in a lane and say, have fun, buddy. We'll see you when it's over, and not really worry about it. So, I mean, you only have one real split pusher right now. So say the early game doesn't implode for these are backwards. Say the game doesn't implode for Looking for Girlfriend. Then, they start even in the split push. You send Shen versus Warwick, and then you send Tryndamere versus Vlad. Tryndamere can get to a point where he can kill Vlad. He picks up Executioner's Calling, he picks up Azil, NIE, and a lifesteal item. So yes, that's 4 items deep. That's a lot of gold on a jungler. But at that point, Killer Z will presumably lose that matchup. The Blue Girl should be able to hold his own against the Warwick, just because I don't see a build where Warwick just straight up kills the Shen currently. And then at that point, it's 1-3-1. You have Anivia, Thresh, Caitlyn, Vroom Vroom, versus Go Sleep Baby on the Jarvan, the Ashe, and the Taric. Every day of the week, I would take Anivia, Caitlyn, Thresh over Taric, Jarvan, Ashe in a siege situation. So as long as Looking for Girlfriend, like I said, doesn't implode pre-5 minutes, then they could potentially stall it out into a nice 1-3-1.
That's assuming they decide to commit to the 1-3-1, though. Depending on how this laning phase goes, if Shen manages to get ahead, he could potentially solo kill the Warwick later on into the game. Warwick's sustain is not exactly the most reliable, and depending on what he builds, he might not even have any sustain at all. And on top of that, though Vladimir can be solo killed by Tryndamere at a certain point, we're assuming they send anyone at all to meet that split push. Depending on how far behind or ahead this Tryndamere is, they might just opt for the forced 5v5 or 4v4s, bring the stand united with the Shen to tip it in their favors, and just brute force towers faster than this Tryndamere can split push. It all really comes down to execution. Like we said before, the movements that are going to be necessary for LGF to really make this composition work have to be flawless. They have to have an idea of where the enemy enemy is at all times. They have to have pushes in all 3 lanes. Get mid priority first, get some wards for the Tryndamere, make sure he doesn't get caught out by multiple members, and hopefully he can manage to stand his own on the 1v1 after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how it turns out. We are still waiting for the game to go live. White Rod DC'd, and they're coming up on a minute and a half left on pause time. So unless the Peanut Gallery give up some of their pause time, they kind of need White Rod to get in now.
Yeah, that's definitely going to pose a problem as well. Disconnects and technical difficulties along with everything else is not going to be very good for morale after that complete stomp in the first game.
Yeah. Getting stomped and then having to play a 5v4 makes life unfun, unhappy. But, well, we're just going to have to wait and see, I guess. So, since we don't have a time frame on this, guys, we are going to take a step back and give you some more tunes so that we don't have to keep talking. All right, I guess we're going into it without White Ra. They ran out of time, so it is going to be a 5v4 for the current future, which is unfortunate.
The Peanut Gallery is well aware of this also. I wouldn't be surprised to see them go for an invade, take advantage. This is still a competitive best of 3 after all.
Yeah, so they are hanging out in the bush. They will be progressing in a minute, I would imagine. Little ducky in the river, keeping watch.
Well, in the meantime, we can see how they manage to survive waiting for White Rot to get back into the game. Anivia, of course, does provide some decent wave clear, but that's not until level 6.
Yeah, level 6 at the best, and surprisingly no invade coming out, but they are going to give Tryndamere his red buff. And that's actually another thing we haven't really seen in the matches this season is no crazy jungle shenanigans, right? Like, teams aren't starting at the Raptor camp. Teams aren't starting at, like, enemy blue buff or anything like that. They're just starting their first, buff and then moving on from there.
And funny enough, they don't decide to do anything funny to the enemy jungler. They're just going to let him take his red and do some camps. Not going to try to harass him early on. But at the same time, we get to see the good old beta to Season 1, early Season 1 meta. We get to see that Tryndamere in the bot lane before the ranged AD carry became a thing. Pretty excited to see how that turns out.
So one thing I actually really want to see this game is I want to see Warwick Q follow the Shen ultimate. Because the Q for Warwick, if you hold it, then you end up like latching onto your opponent and following them. So even if they flash, they dash away, anything like that, you will follow them. And so it does work with the Stand United as well. So if you time it like supremely perfectly, then you can get a free teleport in.
A little bit of trading going back and forth in the mid lane. We can see Some top lane fighting. The push is going on in Warwick's favor, but a gank is coming top at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Taunt comes in. The knockup is not going to come in. Kendra Boo,
boy.
though, tanks a tower shot. First blood going over to Go Sleep Baby.
And we can see that in the bottom lane, Tryndamere has completely disregarded trying to help out the Thresh early on. And he's just going to continue to farm his jungle.
Yeah, this is so far one of those games where there's not a whole lot to say just yet, because right now the teams are just farming. They're making sure that, you know, they stay somewhat even. But I mean, yeah, first blood in the top lane once again actually is unfortunate. Kendra Brew getting caught once again, which leads me to believe it's going to be another situation where Kendra Brew doesn't get to play League of Legends today.
We can see a little bit of harassing going on in the mid lane. Oh boy, here comes another gank.
It comes in, damage reduction goes down and gets the two-man fear. Both their numbers are actually super low. The taunt's not going to land. There's Tryndamere now shows up. LeBlue Girl not going to get slowed, but it shouldn't be. Wait, where's the I was going to say, where's the spin? Where's the spinning slash? It's not necessary, I guess, because they do pick up the return kill. So now it's 1-for-1 in that top lane, even though LeBlue Girl doesn't have a kill. He only had that assist.
That was a nice counter gank. I do like what they decided to do there. Some nice movement. Did predict the second gank coming in, just like the first game. Going to be a lot of early pressure coming to this top side. Oh boy.
Chuck Sherman, though, is ignited, doesn't have level 6. The wall isn't coming in time. The flash auto gets the kill. The counter ignite onto Killer Z, though, is going to have the transfusion up very soon, however.
Yeah, I'm just not quite sure what's going on right now. The movements are being a little bit strange. There's still an egg.
The stun! What? There's no... Oh, Tower, what are you doing? Tower, please!
That's just a lot of strange addressing going on. I mean, it's literally a 4v5. There's no reason to get that aggressive. But we see that after the first game, we did kind of criticize the way they executed those ganks with the Jarvan and the Shen. Though they did wind up getting kills for it, the execution was very sloppy. They missed a lot of things. The EQ and the taunts especially, they were missing constantly last game. And we see that this game, they get punished for it instead. They don't manage to wind up hitting the Warwick with either CC, despite him having no flash and no chance of escaping. They miss both CCs and then wind up giving up a kill in return because they gave enough time for the Tryndamere to counter gank. There's no reason to rush there. They have plenty of time to ensure that they're going to manage to get the gank off correctly. No reason to rush. No flash available for the Warwick. Take your time and land your abilities.
So now, do we see the fabled attack damage Thresh come out?
Oh, I sure hope so.
You know, get a black Blade of the Ruined King, Static Shiv.
Oh, he doesn't even need the blade. Just go full crit. Go for that 100%. Honestly, though, if you do manage to go for the new Static Shiv and Rapid Fire Cannon buffs, that's very potent. That was essentially the gimmick that allowed 80 carry Thresh to become a thing. Just those Static Shiv procs along with a fully stacked E was a ton of extra magic damage. It was basically hybrid damage at that point. Oh god, a little bit of
Kendra
trading.
Boo, what are you doing? Infinite Duress goes out, but now there's no more mana. Can't do anything.
This is just going to get worse and worse. Oh, there's White Rock coming in now.
White
Looks
Rock
like
came
we're not going to
back.
see 80 carry Thresh come in.
We still could. Still a possibility. The dream is there. Knock up on to Mr. Jax. Flash out. Ice Cube goes in. Not going to connect, though.
And we see that again, just like last game. Mr. Jax is getting way too aggressive, trying to overcompensate and trying to get a little bit of extra trade damage. Winds up burning his flash for nothing. Jarvan was just passing along. You have full vision of him. You know he's not ganking. If you can see clearly where he is, no reason to move forward and try to just get a QE on him.
And so the first tower gold comes in. I believe it all went to Icy Doge.
right? Important to keep in mind that local gold still applies to the towers. We can see that Tarek did purposely back away. They wind up giving the entire bonus gold over to the Ashe. Very smart. They've already got an advantage in this lane due to the disconnect early on. May as well continue to give that gold to the Ashe. She's already going to back away with a ton of gold. She's got both a BF sword and tier 2 boots. With Enchanted Crystal Arrow up already, I do like this decision a lot to go for the mobility first. He wants to be able to get in position to get those Enchanted Crystal Arrows and follow up with it.
Mr. Jax, wow, that was if the Tides of Blood had landed there, I think he dies.
You definitely pop the egg there, but important to keep in mind that
Egg.
that Vladimir doesn't exactly have a lot of follow-up damage early on when he still has cooldowns available.
Yeah, I mean, the Ignite was available as well. So, yeah, you're right. The egg would have popped. I kind of forgot about the egg for a second that even existed.
Right, and Vladimir does not have the early cooldowns to be able to finish that off.
But what he does have is the consistent annoyance. So he'd be able to continue doing what he's doing to get that egg pop, to eventually turn it into a kill. The blue girl getting enraged upon. However, knock up onto Kendrabu, into the taunt. Ghostly Baby picks up his second kill of the game.
I'm just wondering how many times they're going to be able to get away with these top lane ganks before Kendrabu realizes that he's the one that's getting focused by the jungler constantly. You just need to ward in the river and back up and let them push to you. If they dive, so be it. You should be able to 1-for-1. But just going for these aggressive plays with no vision, knowing your bottom lane shoved in, knowing your jungler's nowhere nearby, all you're doing is asking to get yourself further and further behind. You're playing the Warwick top, you have to sustain, but if you just keep going for these all-ins, you're basically inting.
Yeah, there wasn't really anything to be done there. I mean, he just dove through like 3 waves worth of caster minions into the not fully recalled Jarvan.
There's just no reason, there's no strategic reason for what Kendrabu has been doing these last 2 games. Yes, you want to try and get an advantage over the Shen, you want to try and pressure him, make sure he can't stand united, but when nothing else is happening on your side of the map, when your team is all shoved in all lanes, your jungler's nowhere nearby, there's only really one place that the enemy jungler can be, and it's going to be right next to you. There's no reason to continue to be aggressive in these matchups when you're already behind as a team.
Yeah, and you know, we can see already in the bottom lane this Caitlyn pickup, you know, missing the first 8 or so minutes of the game. Now you're behind. Now you have 0 place in this lane. You're down 50 CS, and you have no reason to push it even like 3/4 of the way down the lane, let alone halfway, because then you're just gonna eat, you know, Enchanted Crystal Arrow. Again. Kendrabu getting jumped on again. Infinite Duress offensively instead of defensively is going to seal the deal. Ghostly Baby says, thank you for the gold. I'll be back in a minute.
I mean, he knows this is going to be happening. This is over and over again. The ganks are going to keep coming. He keeps putting himself in bad positions. The build on top of everything else, he knows he's going to keep getting ganked. He doesn't go for even tier 1 boots. And he goes for the Ravenous Hydra first item. That's not any tankiness, that's just a little bit of sustain that you can add on to the kit. Really, he's basically asking to constantly get ganked and punished for both his overextensions and his lack of defensive item building.
Second tower of the game going down in favor of the Peanut Gallery.
When the rest of your team's already behind, again, this is assuming that they're really trying their best to win this game. I don't know, along with the composition, with the DC that happened early on, it may just be, and of course the surrender the last game, the team just may not be putting their heart into winning fully right now. They are basically playing out these games, but there's just not a lot of strategy that's currently going into what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard mentally to be, you know, in this situation because, you know, first game could have gone really either way. This game, you know, you start off, unfortunately, with the DC, stuff like that. But you still have at
Right.
least 20 minutes to play, right? And
Right, and
so,
tilt and mental fortitude are definitely factors that can play into these games. These guys aren't professionals. They're people who come in to play in this amateur tournament. They're people who really don't have much, if any at all, competitive experience. So these are the kinds of things that we can expect to see happen. Not every single person is going to be motivated the same to be trying their hardest, especially after a crushing defeat in the game before. But at the same time, it's just a little confusing to see some of the decisions that have been made so far in this game.
we see
Oh,
a
it's very
huge
nice
engage coming in here. Cataclysm seals the deal. Taric ultimate, not even really necessary, honestly. Randuin's coming in. That should be the
very
tower.
nice flash for Taric to get the double stun off. Oh,
Taunt not gonna land. No Cataclysm available. Big stun fear combo coming in. But 5 members alive, and that should be the mid lane tower as well.
In the meantime, they're finally starting to execute the game plan that they had, sending this Trendemir topside, telling the rest of the team, well, you're going to be just fine on your own. He's going to at least try to recover some global gold for his team, and he at least takes the first tower of the game for LGF.
So now, Tiamat Trindamere seems a little interesting because wouldn't the static Shiv be A, cheaper and more efficient?
There's a very good chance he's going to wind up building both, and you're correct. That's something that has kind of been on the minds of the Shaco mains for a while as well. As you know, the Shaco has been one of those champions that can build either static Shiv and Tiamat, or Tiamat, and when you're really thinking about wave clear and also the potential burst of both items, yes, building both together is typically not a good idea. So we can see now with those double daggers, very good chance that's not going to be a Shiv bot, which is traditionally what's bought by Trendemir players. Probably going to be a Phantom Dancer instead. I'm really hoping that's not a Hurricane. I don't think they're that far gone yet, but in that case, it's going to be the Phantom Dancer built for the Trendemir. Going to give him a little bit of dueling potential, and looks like White Rose about to get taken down.
Oh, that's a fancy footwork. He's dead anyway, but it looks pretty. Now, what was I going to say? I was going to say something. Oh, watching White Ross struggle with those Krugs, there's a much easier way to do it if you stand in that bush there, because standing in the bushes for Caitlyn gives you 2 headshot procs for every auto attack. That should have not gone through. That flay should have kept him from dragging away. Not sure what happened there.
I think it's time for a remake.
Please no.
Competitive integrity.
No, it's fine. Scratch that. That's totally supposed to happen. Flay doesn't interrupt flag
Yeah, that's
attack.
actually the exact interaction that's supposed to happen there. No, but really, again, Jarvan in general is a buggy character. Not even the EQ alone, just the way his flag interacts with a ton of things. Oh my god, he missed the EQ.
Which should seal his death. Mr. Jax, though, missing the ultimate. Stand united, doesn't matter. Shutdown coming in.
And he misses the E.
Rift Herald is just kind of chilling. Like, guys, come on. What are you doing to me? Rift Herald goes in. Rift Herald goes out. The Infinite Duress is not going to finish him in time. So Shen gets out with a sliver of HP. Meanwhile, it is a rout for the Peanut Gallery. What looked like a good fight for Looking for Girlfriend ends up not.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a heartbreaker there. What looked like a good start at first winds up being just another negative trade. Looks like they're going to wind up getting the Anivia too. Just use the flash, man. There we go. Alright. He really didn't want to use the flash. He might actually not even get this kill. He doesn't have an E up yet.
Enchanted Crystal Arrow, no! Ignite, no! If that stun lands...
Come in to help him out. He'll have to be burned as well.
If that Ice Cube stun lands, Killer Z dies. Because he would have been dead quicker than the heal would have been available. So, land your skill shots, kids. Get your kills.
Yeah, it's just another minor thing that's going on. We can see that this game's already being shifted pretty heavily in the favor of the Peanut Gallery. They already have a 7,000 gold lead, and that's going to continue to build with the Rift Herald now taken away as well. They're going to be able to go for a push in whichever lane they please. They're positioning for the Drake now, sending both their carries to the bottom side of the map. Blue buff going to be donated over, most likely? No? Giving the blue buff over to the Jarvan. Alright.
I mean, Vlad doesn't have mana, so it makes sense. Plus, having the EQ combo off cooldown is more impactful than having transfusion. So, it makes sense.
A little bit more trading in the top side. Not a very tanky Warwick yet. I don't think he wins this. Oh, dragon fight.
Chuck Sherman's doing what he can. And Kendra Boo's actually doing a fantastic job. Ends up winning that fight, which I believe we said would happen. But what that does is stops the Stand United. Now there's fights happening. Take the lantern. Great wall coming in there.
Well, now that's a little shining beacon of hope. Not only can the Warwick apparently 1v1 the Shen, that's some very nice information to keep in mind for looking LGF. But they also get the Drake, they get another kill, and they manage to get everyone out alive as well.
For now. Oh, Mr. Jack's just barely getting out.
Wow, they actually have a slight slimmer of hope. Oh, here comes the Rift Herald. They're going to try to secure a turret that they already had secured.
They're gonna go for the
a wasted Rift Herald.
Well, no, because if they can catch the Anivia, the stun lands. The Stand United is coming in. Taric ultimate is going through. Mr. Jack should go down to the burn. Rift Herald is now putting its face where the money is in the tower. They can push to get this. There's no damage stopping them. It is just the Blue Girl walking forward. Joke's on you, LoveDi. That wasn't a wasted Herald.
Yeah, I spoke too soon. They definitely got a lot more aggressive than I thought they might. They might end up taking the inhibitor, just literally brute forcing a team fight. I like it. They definitely had the tools to do it. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow was already back up. They had the Taric ultimate still available as well. So what was originally a team fight loss for them, losing that Mountain Drake, that kill, and having Shen get solo killed as well, wound up going back in their favor after a little more extended
big stun onto Icy Dogs, but no big follow-up after that. White Raw's already forced out of the fight. The Blue Girl goes down. Cataclysm comes in. Suppression onto the Taric. HM's taken super low. Killer Z's trying to get away, but he gets hooked back in. Icy Dog is left untouched, however. Now it's a 2-on-3. Wall keeps Killer Z in, but he's trapped in here with them. Not you trapped in with him. But now they're pushing back onto the tower. Super minions in the mid lane. 200 and White Raw have their work cut out for them. Hemo Plague goes in. Transfusion takes out. Killer Z is surviving. He gets one kill. Can he get another one? Transfusion is just barely available. Pool doesn't need it. Double kill for Killer Z.
They're going to wind up being able to take more out of this too. 3 seconds on the Tryndamere. They're going to be able to get this inhibitor tower and most likely get out as well. Tryndamere sprinting towards the bottom side already. Looks like he wants to chase down that Ashe.
TP coming in. Doesn't get the slow into Icy Dog. Now he's kind of forced to run away. TP does get canceled by the Blue Girl, however.
I like it. They did realize that they were going to have to trade something for that inhibitor tower. They opted to... It was a little bit more important to trade away the TP for the Shen, considering his Stand United's already 3/4 of the way up, rather than the life of Ashe instead. Definitely a worth trade. They now have another option. They can push down the bottom side without fear of a tower, and they're getting all set up for the Drake now. Tryndamere going back on his split push rampage in the bottom side of the map.
The issue now is with no TP. He leaves the Baron play open. Mr. Jax, though, not going to get stunned, actually. I'm surprised. Takes the Lantern out over the wall. And I'd like to point out, currently, the Peanut Gallery has 4 control wards on the map. 2 up top towards the Baron and 2 on the bottom towards the Dragon. So, I mean, they have very fantastic vision game already. Taunt goes in onto Kendrabu. 2-man stun from the Taric. Taric ultimate comes off cooldown. Enchanted Crystal Arrow does pick up onto 200. That is a kill for free. Killer Z running under the tower. They still needed to get 1 down, though. Stand United, not quite needed. Holy moly! Huge 3-man Ice Cube stun coming in from Mr. Jax. Over the wall comes Mr. Jax, though. No, Mr. Killer Z, not Mr. Jax. He might end up trading his life, however. The stun does not land, but it's too bad. Too much damage coming against him. Can't sustain through it. So a 2 for 2, and only 1 tower goes down. They do have to defend the Nexus turrets, though.
In the end, they do wind up getting a little over-aggressive with the calls. They definitely still have the damage and the tankiness to try and take down this Baron as well. They're healthy enough to be able to do this. They're going to keep going for it. Oh, they might get stopped, though.
They have the move speed on the Warwick to get in range. There's no abilities available, no flash, no infinite duress. So he's kind of just going to scare him off, which Warwick soundbite, pretty scary.
An interesting build as well, going for the Titanic Hydra. He had a Tiamat and a Vampiric Scepter, yet he still opted for the Titanic Hydra. Kind of a strange item choice, basically spending that 900 gold very early on for the sustain. But
I mean, it worked out for him. He got the solo kill onto the Blue Girl.
He did. I don't know if I'd attribute that to the 10% lifesteal, but it may have helped. We can see now that they're trying to collect around the Baron again. Trendemir's in the bottom side collecting his Krugs, but vision control is going to go right back to the peanut gallery as they surround the outside area of this Baron. That is some loud traffic. Oh.
The traffic here is ridiculous today for some reason. I think it's the heat. It's getting to everybody. But what might not be the heat is this Baron call. And so now it's
positioned to stop it again. White bottom lane.
There's completely zero vision available for Looking for Girlfriend, which means it is going to be a free Baron. And with 1 inhibitor already down, this could be the game. They can just brute force it down mid, and who's going to say no?
I'm not entirely sure, but I believe Mr. Jax is now AFK. Either that, or he really wants to wait the extra 350 gold to finish that Seraph's Embrace. That's really unfortunate with multiple disconnects happening this game.
Yeah, unfortunately, no more pause time available because they used it all on White Raw. So the mid lane inhibitor going down, the second inhibitor of the game, third coming in too. That is the bottom one. This game should be all but over now. But it looks like they want to go for the home run, get that third inhibitor.
Yeah, they're going to keep collecting.
They land the hook onto Taric. They're going hard. 2-man stun from HM. 2-man stun from Mr. Jax. Stand United is coming in onto HM to keep him alive. Chuck Sharman's already forced out of the fight. Emo Plague landed onto White Raw, taken so incredibly low. But nobody goes down just yet. Pushing onto this final inhibitor tower, though. Stun on the Luba Girl. And first, the Infinite Duress lands on to the mid laner, but can they do anything more? HM is fleeing, but in the back line, Killer Z takes down the bird, and now it is a rout for the peanut gallery. Big stun coming in onto White Raw. White Raw is ignited. Kill goes down on the Blue Girl, though, so it is a 2 for 3. Can they defend against the 2 solo damage dealers of the peanut gallery? However, they cannot, because Killer Z is just going to flash transfusion, take him down. Baron empowered minions are on the Nexus towers. Ace in the hole doesn't really do a whole lot to HM, so this is going to be the game. That is game 2, and the series going over to the peanut gallery. Eventually.
Any minute now. There we go.
There it is. So, an unfortunate game 2 for Looking for Girlfriend, but it kind of started in draft phase as well. It was a wonky draft, I feel, and I feel like you agreed with me on that one.
In both games, they definitely went for untraditional team compositions. The disconnect, of course, did not help anything, but they didn't exactly have the tools you might expect from a normal team composition to be able to come back into the game. I would have liked to see them maybe pick up the Orianna for themselves instead of ban it away. Maybe play something with a little bit safer wave clear, maybe Ziggs. Just really something more traditional out of this series. First the Pantheon and then the Warwick. They were basically banking a lot of their strategy on very non-traditional picks, and it definitely didn't seem like they had much practice on the composition in general. Along with disconnects makes this a very quick and a very painless best of 3.
Yeah, I mean, looking at these damage charts, it's not as skewed as it was the first game. This time, both mid laners showed up, 19k for Mr. Jax and 30k for Killer Z. So, I mean, they did a lot more this game than last game, and pretty much everybody on the Peanut Gallery did some amount of damage, except for the Taric. But, I mean, you can look at the kill death, you can look at the damage charts, all of it's very one-sided. I'm imagining if we looked at the gold graph, which I'm not sure, yeah, we can. Income, that's not team gold, but oh well. Gold was a bit one-sided as well, and it's just one of those things, unfortunately, that happens in stuff like this.
Some things I want both teams to take away from this game is first, Kendrabu really needs to lessen the aggression, especially early on in the game. We saw here this series was a perfect example of what can happen when you play over aggressive with no wards and with no jungle backup coming. The one time he had jungle backup coming, they get not only the counter gank, but a 1-for-0 exchange. Every other time he winds up dying, burning summoners, going down, losing CS, forced to use TP. All kinds of pressure situations happen just because of this over-aggression in these matchups without the information to back it. At the same time, some things that I want to see the Peanut Gallery improve on early on is kind of wards in general, vision. A couple times they did also get over aggressive kind of in the mid to top lane area because they didn't have vision of exactly where the rest of the members were, and a more coordinated team may punish that more heavily for those mistakes. This game in particular, they had the momentum on their side, and they were able to execute without a problem, but they really need to focus on not only vision, but really hitting the abilities they need to hit to make sure these ganks and these plays are completed without a problem. Especially on the Jarvan and Shen matchups, they were missing EQs and they were missing taunts left and right, and against more prepared teams, that might get punished much more heavily.
Yeah, I mean, both series, even though, there were some mechanical issues, they got the job done even against some more unconventional picks. So, I mean, at least, they were working together, they were making communications, they recognized the top side was the weak point, they attacked it time and time again, and it worked both games. So, I mean, you can't really fault them too hard, but, clean up some mechanics, and all of a sudden you have a very strong team looking forward. And I'm excited to see how the rest of the season pans out for them.
Just important to note that just because something gives you the W in the end does not mean it was the correct thing to do. But definitely both teams have a lot they can improve on over the season. And I'm looking forward to see how they develop as we approach playoffs.
And remember, boys, even if it's stupid, if it works, it's not stupid. But on that bombshell, we are done for tonight. It is a 2-0 in favor of the Peanut Gallery. So make sure to stay tuned for the rest of the games this weekend. We have the Phoenix League coming up tomorrow. LoveDi and I will be making a reappearance then. But also, if you want to get involved with Ascension eSports, you want to play in our leagues and our in-houses, hit us up on Reddit, hit us up on Twitter and Discord. We'll get you in where you need to be, and we'll get some games going for everybody. So thank you, everybody, for watching. I'm Doctor, joined by LoveDi.
Have a good night.
And we'll catch you tomorrow. Goodbye and good night.